everybody. Welcome back. It's the Sports Doctor live from Chicago. I'm Dr. Bob Weil, sports podiatrist. Everybody knows figure skating. Gosh, decades of information. We're excited. Signe Ronka, she's a former figure skating champion. She's the founder of fantastic off-ice programs, FLEXAFIT, and the founder, publisher of Figure Skating Fitness magazine. Signe Ronka, welcome to the Sports Doctor.
Thank you so much, and thank you. It was an honor to be on your show alongside with Bill Crawford. It's really exciting. Thank you for having me.
Great. I know. It's funny. You go back doing some junior skating, whatever, with my poster boy, Evan Lysacek, the 2010 figure skating gold medalist. He was 10 years old. We put orthotics in his skates. Signe, give us some background on yourself leading up to what you're doing at this point in time.
Okay, so how much time do we have? Well,
give me a quickie, young lady.
Yeah, I'm gonna try my best. Okay, so yeah, I competed for Canada internationally in the junior scale. I was representing Canada, medaling at multiple junior Grand Prix events and doing the Junior Worlds circuit. And yeah, ultimately, what ended my career was some terrible reoccurring stress-related injuries. And that is what led me into focusing on my coaching career and getting into preventing injuries for skaters for future generations and, learning all about what it takes to make sure that the stuff that happened to me doesn't happen to the next generation. So all of our program we built around FLEXAFIT is to help off-ice training for figure skaters worldwide to prevent injuries and prepare them properly for the sport that they need to be putting that demand on their bodies.
Signe, what's interesting, one of the chapters in my book, #A Sports Parents, is called The Prodigy Sports. We tell people, doctors tell people, trainers tell people, we want kids to play multiple sports when they grow up. And that's great, unless you're a figure skater or a gymnast, maybe even soccer or tennis, where already at 12, 13 years old or younger, this is all you want to do. So the idea of repetitive motion injuries has always been a nightmare in the world of figure skating because it's become so much more athletic. When we think of the great champions in the past, the Michelle Kwans and the Peggy Flemings and the Dorothy Hamels, none of them did triples. Now we have girls, in some cases, doing quad jumps. The physicality has become so much more dramatic. And this is why off-ice training is so important, and mixing in, the problems with overuse. The reason I co-authored the book was there's an epidemic of youth sports overuse injuries, and figure skating is right smack in the middle of it. So it's great that this FLEXAFIT, you're paying so much attention, again, to preventing problems and being able to deal, because the prodigy sport is I'm sure that when you grew up, that's what you were playing.
Well, yeah, and it's actually interesting that you're mentioning all of that because, back when I was even competing, we were doing all our triples, even attempting some quads, and there was no good practice on injury prevention and making sure your body is set up for the amount of demand that is required in our sport, and even more so now. And, yourself being a foot doctor and specialist in that field, I think you would understand more than anybody that making sure that your ankles are strong enough to take on the pounding of the body when you're coming down with more than four to five times your body weight is really an essential part to training, along with all the high-intensity conditioning and, sprinting and all of the other things that come along with it.
It's amazing. And right. In the decades of seeing young female skaters as young as 10, sometimes even younger in a few years, half of them I was seeing because of knee problems. So the whole concept that the feet affect everywhere else is one of the biggest things we pay huge attention to. Any persistent chronic your back, your hips, again, and why this is missed so often is the fact that if the feet don't hurt, sometimes it's ignored. And this is why we pay, another chapter in my book is called The 2 Essential Exercises for all you guys, is we want these skaters to strengthen their feet and ankles routinely, proactively, and we want them to really work on balance. More is not better. One of our biggest concerns, again, is overkill, overscheduling, just too much pounding. You know, when I have these young girls who are doing double jumps all week at 11, 12 years old, what are they doing off ice? They're jumping rope and running stairs. So pardon me if I'm screaming about that.
Yeah,
I'm screaming about it, Signe.
I can hear you. I think a big part, I just want to mention, even like what you just said, is that, you know, you don't know until it happens to you later, and then it's too late. And I was probably 25 when I started to feel my hip really, really hurting. And I know that it was from all the pounding and grinding on that hip from the jumping. And eventually I treated myself by figuring out all these injury prevention exercises so I didn't need to get surgery. But I don't know if you are aware of how many figure skaters end up getting hip replacements like way later after their careers are over.
Oh, yes, and gymnastics. These are the two sports,
gymnastics, yeah.
Again, that many times we would see. What's her name? The young girl was a world national champion at 15 years old. She does all the commentary now in figure skating. Oh, God.
Tara Lipinski.
Right. When, unbelievable, the jumping and what was going on. And then, of course, later on, and there's almost no way to prevent this. If you're going to be at this world level, I had a group of all different doctors and specialties when we were dealing with Lysa-Check, 10, 11, 12 years old, orthopedics and podiatry and physical therapy. We were talking about how safe is it to do triple jumps at 12, 13 years old. And there wasn't one vote that talked about, except for the fact that if the Russians were doing it, we needed to be doing it. And we had to try to prepare these athletes. His initial coach, Evan's initial coach, Candy Brown, who's still coaching now in Dallas, Candy Brown Burek, was so ahead of her time when she was paying attention. She was brought this to our attention in the late 70s, early 80s. I don't know if you recall Angelo D'Agostino, who might have been the first youngster that we were paying such big attention to the role of orthotics and the role of alignment in figure skating, let alone the mental game. How big a deal, Signe, do you pay attention to also the mental side with these young skaters? And their families and coaches.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think, I have a degree in psychology as well, and it's interesting when you're working with the skaters how much it's not even about the jumps or what they're doing. It's all about also how they deal with the pressure and the coaches putting on pressure for them to jump. And sometimes they're feeling injured and they have to push themselves through the pain. And, they talk to me about that. And one of the biggest things, I think, what we have to understand in our off-ice training is that sometimes we have to understand when the skater is feeling tired, we should not be pushing them beyond the limit necessarily. There's a time and place for that, of course, but it's more on the overtraining side when you start seeing the skater being...
Well, I tell you, Signe, the percentage of young skaters and young athletes who are living on over-the-counter pain medicine to try to keep up, to try to play hurt, to try to not be falling behind is scary. And this is why we end up, in some instances, like the Olympics, that incredible Russian skater might have been the most exciting I think I've ever seen, who ended up being in trouble because of whatever kinds of drugs her coaches were pushing her on in order to be able to do more, in order to be able to calm things down. And, of course, everybody knows how insane some of that stuff is. And this is where the education of the coaches and the families becomes so important. Rest and recovery, major key. Nutrition also, right?
Absolutely. Everything comes along with it. Proper sleep. The skaters sometimes go to bed so late after doing their homework forever and all their other stuff that they do, and then they're waking up really early and not warming up properly, and there's an injury waiting to happen, and you don't even know about it. We need
after the Olympics,
we need to be educating.
Tanya Lysa-Check, created by Evan's mom, who was involved in every step of his career. I had her on, one of the questions always was, whose goal is it? And who's pushing? And what about overzealous parents, et cetera? I had her on right after the Olympics. I think it might still be on my website, that show. I said to her, how did you know, Tanya, that you weren't over pushing on whether it was Evan's goal? She said, Dr. Bob, Evan had ice time at 6:20 in the morning. I never had to wake the kid up. There he was in the car, with his gloves on.
Yeah,
hey, Mom, let's go.
Amazing.
I thought that was such a great answer in so many ways. Again, because this, I felt the figure skaters were way ahead of the curve when they were doing visualization 40 years ago, 30 years ago. Candy Brown was paying attention. I thought you guys were trendsetters in the mental game.
I know. I remember doing it myself too. It was like,
really?
Yeah. Even when I was competing, we were doing visualization, walking through our programs, closing our eyes, watching the jumps being executed perfectly. I remember right before competition, I would go to bed every night and, visualize my short program perfect before waking up the next day.
You were way ahead. Every sport,
so.
All those years ago, pro sports thought it was voodoo. Mental training. Now, again, of course, it's such a big deal, and I always gave figure skating some real credit when we saw how this was something they were paying attention to. What's the best website, Signe, people could find out about you and all your programs?
Yeah, so if you go to FLEXAFIT.com, that is our website where you can find all about our programs and our magazine.
FLEXAFIT.com. And I know we're going to get cut off in a minute or so, and I wanted to talk to you to start telling us about the figure skater fitness magazine.
Yes. So in 2015, I was on a trip to Florida with my husband, and we were sitting in the airport, and I was thinking, what magazine do I want to read? And I was thinking to myself, there is no magazine out there that is sport specific to figure skating and all the training essentials that need to be in place. And that's when I came up with this idea way back and decided that I'm going to give out in a magazine that is basically everything what I would have loved to see when I was competing, on injury prevention, mental training, fitness, different parts of, kind of like nutrition that the skaters can have. So all of our industry specialist writers are amazing, and they are writing for us since, almost 8 years now and still with us. And we are putting together a quarterly issue. So it's released every 3 months, giving the skaters a periodized perspective, what they need to be doing in that part of the season.
I'm going to tune you right into the Sports Doctors In column. Like we have with MVP Parent Magazine. The idea, we're going to talk more about all of this with Signe Ronka, the former champion, the founder of FLEXAFIT Figure Skating Magazine. We will be back. It is the Sports Doctor. Hey, everybody, we're back live from Chicago, the Sports Doctor. We are talking with Signe Ronka, the founder of FLEXAFIT and all the off-ice protocols, Figure Skating Fitness Magazine. You mentioned briefly, Signe, in the first segment, that you had a degree in psychology, because I always ask coaches like yourself how your sports psychology skills are when you're dealing with families, coaches, kids. It's such a big deal. Talk a little bit about the mental game, whether it's your magazine, whether it's your off-ice, and how you deal with overzealous, whether it's parents and or coaches, expectations, etc.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of the stuff that you learn in psychology, it's almost like when you get into the real world and you start dealing with the parents or skaters or coaches individually, you have to attack it on a case-by-case kind of situation. So learning about, especially when I work with skaters on a daily basis, everybody is different. Everybody has different fears and different anxieties of things that might happen or what they're what they're thinking about going into jumps. So more on even just training technique or training strength and conditioning and all these things that come behind it. We have to understand what fears or what anxieties are coming along with the skaters, especially when they're jumping, to really tackle how they can mentally prepare and what kind of keywords work best for each skater. So I think that's a big part of the mental training aspect. But moreover, also competitions, I think that's a big part through what we offer in the magazine, is dealing with how do you overcome being super nervous, or what if, you're skating with your best friend and they're, competing against you? How do you deal with that kind of pressure? And if they beat you, what do you feel or what do you say? Like all these little things that we don't really think about as, athletes, now all of a sudden come into big play when you're out there competing. There's more than just, oh my gosh, I need to land these jumps. All of a sudden these external factors are coming into play that can affect your performance.
Let alone coming back from injuries. You experienced that. The challenge of, can I get better yesterday? The challenge of, oh man, I'm injured again. And these kinds of things are such a big, big part, again, of these prodigy sports, especially at the kinds of levels that you're dealing with. What are the ages, as you see it, just in general, that you start paying attention with some of these young skaters? Like I said, I got a room full of 10-year-olds already doing, doubles and whatever. What are the age groups, Signe?
Well, like you said, we're getting younger and younger into specialization and getting into the triple jumps at 11, 12. I mean, I myself was doing all my triples before I turned 13. And I think one of the biggest times is when you're working on the fundamentals. And that's when, it's the key time to really look at the skaters' bodies and make sure the alignment is there. They've got proper technique on the basics. And that's when it really matters to make sure that you're checking in on everything. I mean, it matters all the way through, of course, but at these younger ages, when you start seeing like habits start forming, and then it can be a little bit too late once they start to hit, puberty. By that point, if they have misalignment or, your feet need to be corrected and you're pounding your body on that, that's when it's like that little, it's maybe a little bit too late to correct that quick enough. And now we're playing catch up.
Yes, it's one of the things that we've seen. So many skaters have the misconception that a custom boot is what is the optimum of everything. And the custom boot is about custom fit. Alignment is about proper custom orthotics. We were really talking about the alignment, the complicated foot-ankle motions, especially when it's locked in a tight boot. And this is something, again, that we've been working on so much and getting the awareness in coaches and parents, where we're told we don't need something wrong to incorporate proper orthotics is another major key. It's almost always a step up when we're talking about prescription. A couple of the champions in the world of figure skating that are former guests of mine, Kim Ryan with her Spinergy and the whole spinning world action, Sheila Thielen and her vestibular services. We were talking about all those spinning techniques, and the extraordinary kind of body control, motion control that's involved when you're talking about some of these extraordinary spins, especially when you're coming down from some sort of jumping. And the whole art side, the dancing side of skating is such a big deal. The art side, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that we really need to be focusing more on is, ballet training and dance training outside of skating, because not only for posture and alignment, but for feet as well. Like, I'm very interested in that aspect too, because the skate can only hold you up as a cast for so long. Your ankles actually need to be strong on their own, because as soon as you take your skate off and you start jumping on the floor, a lot of skaters get injured in off-ice jumps because their ankles are not strong, and they're now trying these elements on the floor when they're not ready for it with the support of the ankle. So there's a lot of aspects to dance that can help with that. A lot of balance training, like you mentioned in the other segment, using BOSUs and balance boards and everything like that to strengthen the ankles. It's very important.
Fantastic, unique piece of equipment you have to pay attention to, Signe. It's called the sand dune stepper. If you go to Instagram, you'll see all about it. The sand dune stepper simulates on the beach, working all the inner muscles and gripping powers of the feet and toes, which is something that is really, really not often done. And the idea, again, of working balance and not more jumping and pounding, but, incorporating some of these different, vestibular balance type of exercises that we think are so important. And how have you found the cooperation of the industry? Where we used to have such tradition in so many ways that trying to change it was sort of like good luck to us, in many ways. How have you found the cooperation of the higher echelon coaches, nationally, internationally, understanding that we've got some real physical and mental challenges that we really have to pay attention to, programs like yours? How have people tuned into that in your world, Signe?
Oh, I lost you for a second there.
Okay, good. We got you back. Yes. There's nothing like the excitement of live radio, Signe.
I was
like a guest doesn't show up because they got the wrong time zone. I was asking you about how you have found the coaching, the medical, the other kinds of parts of your industry, understanding how important programs like yours, education like the magazine, how's the cooperation been in some of your experiences? I think it's getting a lot better.
I think so too. And as much as COVID was a little bit of a horrible thing that happened to us, I think in a way it was a blessing in disguise for figure skaters to understand how important it is to keep up with their off-ice training during the time where there was a lot of shutdowns and we couldn't actually physically be on the ice. So I think at this point, it was a slow kind of climb, but I think COVID times really in the last 3 years, our skaters are really understanding the importance of off-ice training. The coaches really got into it too with all the Zoom lessons. And I think now we are starting to see a change in the fact that, wow, we really did see a result of just the off-ice training and how that translated back to on the ice, and where kids maybe didn't lose as much jumps, or they got stronger actually taking time off just doing off ice.
Yeah, well, so it's amazing, Signe, is wherever my guests are from internationally, whatever their vocation or profession, mental fitness, mental health is like on top of the list. Just today, again, warnings from the Surgeon General about social media and these kids and the kinds of challenges when you have serious young athletes, and how do you deal with some of the insanity of social media, where I say to all you coaches, good luck to you. How do you deal with that? How do you see that being incorporated?
I mean, one thing that I tell the skaters a lot is, sometimes, you watch social media, but don't pay too close attention to, all these crazy tricks that people are doing. I've seen so many injuries happen from skaters trying to do something really outrageous that maybe the person is able to do just because they're naturally able to do it, but doesn't mean that everybody should go and put their skates on and start skipping rope with their skates on. They're going to twist an ankle. So I think there's a lot of crazy stuff out there on social media that we should take with a grain of salt and really do more research on our own to understand if this is the right type of training for you. And that's when, you really realize, okay, am I looking for something that's really just crazy out there? Can I stand on a ball or whatever? Or what is the purpose of this kind of training and what I'm actually focusing on? And on the side note, we always see all these especially with girls watching other, social media accounts and seeing, oh my gosh, they're doing so much, or this, I'm not doing enough. Listen to your coaches. I think that's the best advice. Listen to your coaches, your parents, and build a solid team around you. And, keep your social media on the side if you want, but really have a good team around you to guide you properly. And that's going to keep you on track to know exactly what you need to be doing for your training.
Oh, yeah, that was a big emphasis with us, with Evan. We had a whole team in the areas, again, of mental training, of the physical training side, of the nutrition side, and trying to pay. We tell these young skaters, again, many times a home program is such a key because these kids are so overscheduled. There's not enough time to get to other classes. I'm going to have to talk to you about that on another show. Signe Ronka, great. Give me again, Signe, the website to find out about you and your program.
Yeah, thank you so much. The website is FLEXAFIT.com, and you can find all the information for our off-ice training and our magazine on that. For
sure. I want to thank you so much. Hold on, Signe. We're going to be right back, everybody. Okay. Sports Doctor.